This story is based on official reports and eyewitness accounts. And this is the story of South African Airlines Flight 295. At Taipei in Taiwan, on the evening of November 27, 1987, a total of 140 passengers and 19 crew members embarked on a South African Airways Boeing 747. Their destination was Johannesburg, South Africa, with a planned layover in Mauritius. South African Airways Flight 295, scheduled for a 10-hour duration, is expected to operate with that flight time. Even up to the present day, the actual narrative behind Flight 295 remains surrounded by mystery and conspiracy. South African Airways utilized a variant of the 747 called the Combi, which facilitated the transportation of both passengers and cargo on the main deck. The front two-thirds of the aircraft were designated for passenger seating, while the remaining rear third was allocated for cargo storage. A total of 6 pallets of cargo are positioned on the main deck of the aircraft. According to the master weighbill, the combined weight of baggage and cargo loaded onto the airplane amounts to 47,000 kilograms. The majority of the passengers on board were South Africans who were returning home. However, there were also a significant number of Japanese and Taiwanese nationals, as well as passengers from Europe and Australia. The cockpit housed a highly experienced crew. The captain, Goose, a former Air Force pilot, aged 49, possessed nearly 14,000 hours of flying experience. Seated to his right was First Officer David Atwell, 36 years old, with over 7,000 hours of total flying experience, including around 4,000 hours on the Boeing 747-200. Occupying the position of flight engineer was Bella Garda, 45 years old, who also had extensive hours of flying the 747. It was Bella who would first uncover the true nature of the emergency on that fateful night. Additionally, due to the extended duration of the flight, 2 more flight crew members were present in the cockpit for the long cruise over the ocean. Relief pilot Jeffrey, aged 37, and flight engineer Alan, aged 34. The crew was getting the large aircraft ready for departure on one of the longest routes in the airline's network, and everything seemed normal. At 10:15 p.m. that night, the 747 was pushed back from the gate at Taipei. The 140 passengers on board prepared themselves for the extended journey, while the pilots commenced their pre-flight preparations for takeoff. The departure of Flight 295 was delayed due to inclement weather and the late arrival of a connecting flight. Eventually, at 22:20 local time, the aircraft took off from Taipei Airport, commencing its route to Johannesburg with a layover in Mauritius. Let's take a short break. We've put a lot of effort into this video, and if you find it useful and informative, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring you more great content. Thanks for watching. Once airborne, the captain directed the plane towards the south, initiating the lengthy journey towards Mauritius. About half an hour after takeoff, the flight reached its initial cruising altitude high above the South China Sea. The pilots continued south along the planet route, making routine position reports to air traffic controllers of Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Kuala Lumpur. So far, everything was going to plan. About 90 minutes after takeoff, the pilots also made a routine call to a radio station operated by South African Airways all the way over in Johannesburg. This station was known as ZUR, and it was manned 24/7 by a radio operator employed by South African Airways. The purpose of ZUR was to enable the airline to keep track of its fleet of aircraft around the world and to deal with any problems as they arose. After 9 hours had passed, as the flight approached Mauritius, the flight crew started to prepare the aircraft for landing by adjusting its configuration. At some point during the initial phase of the landing approach to Mauritius, a fire erupted in the cargo area located on the main deck of the aircraft. They found themselves facing the most dire emergency an aircraft can encounter, an in-flight fire. A fire suddenly erupted in the cargo hold on the main deck, specifically in the right forward pallet located behind the passenger cabin. At approximately 3:45 local time, the flight deck received the master fire warning alarm, alerting the pilots to the situation. After silencing the warning, a chime signaled an incoming intercom request from someone in the cabin seeking communication with the pilots. However, the pilots disregarded the request as they hastily focused on locating the source of the problem. The The pilots wasted no time in pinpointing the main deck cargo area as the source of the fire. Captain Oos immediately directed co-pilot Atwell to commence the cargo fire checklist. Meanwhile, flight engineer Bella Garda observed a series of circuit breakers popping at his control station. A loud electronic sound then pierces through the audio, and the recording ends abruptly. The failure of the cockpit voice recorder can only mean that the fire has already destroyed the wiring connecting it to the cockpit microphones. The circuit breakers mentioned by the flight engineer were tripping due to the fire's destructive impact on the electrical wires they were linked to. They had to extinguish the fire quickly to increase their chances of survival. Acting without delay was crucial in their current situation. As Flight 295 continues its journey above a secluded area of the ocean, the air traffic controller at Plaisance Airport in Mauritius receives a distress call from the Boeing 747 aircraft.
Mauritius, Springbok 295.
Springbok 295, Mauritius, good morning, go ahead.
Good morning, we have a smoke problem and we're doing emergency descent to level 140.
You wish to descend to level 140?
Yeah, we have already commenced due to a smoke problem in the airplane.
Roger, you are clear to descend immediately to level 140.
Roger, we are on the pre-send if you can alert the fire up.
Do you request a full emergency?
Okay, how can you hold?
It's got 295 please.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you request a full emergency, please, a full emergency?
That's Charlie.
Roger, I declare a full emergency, Roger.
Thank you.
35 seconds later.
It's got 295 please.
Go ahead.
Request your actual position, please, and your DME distance.
DME, which stands for Distance Measuring Equipment, is a system that provides information about the aircraft's distance from the locator beacon at the airport.
We haven't got the DME yet.
Roger, and your actual position, please?
Sorry, again?
Your actual position?
Now, we've lost a lot of electrics, we haven't got anything on the aircraft now.
Roger, I declare a full emergency immediately.
Shortly thereafter, the air traffic controller inquires with the pilot of Flight 295 if they have an estimated time of arrival.
Springbok 295, do you have an Echo Tango Alpha Plaisance, please?
The pilot communicates to the air traffic controller that the estimated arrival time for the aircraft is 4:30 a.m. local time. However, considering the presence of a fire on board, this signifies a considerably long duration of 38 minutes remaining until reaching Plaisance. At this point, a period of silence ensues, lasting for approximately 9 minutes. Suddenly, there is an accidental transmission of a brief snippet of cockpit conversation once more. The pilot communicates a distance report of 65 nautical miles, leading the approach controller to believe it pertains to the distance to the airport. However, it is later clarified that the mentioned distance refers to the next waypoint, while the actual distance to the airport is now determined to be 145 nautical miles. At this point, the fire starts to burn the aircraft structure, leading to a critical situation. Then, at exactly 4:07, the aircraft breaks apart in midair, starting with the tail section due to the fire's damaging effects. Following the midair disintegration, the aircraft tragically crashes into the Indian Ocean, located approximately 134 nautical miles away from the airport. Tragically, there were no survivors. Investigators were able to reconstruct a basic account of what occurred on the 747 by examining evidence from the cockpit voice recorder. air traffic control tapes, and wreckage. It was determined that a fire broke out in the front right pallet, containing computers, which quickly spread to the nearby cardboard and polystyrene packaging, producing smoke that activated the main deck cargo fire alarm. When a crew member attempted to extinguish the fire, it was already too intense to be controlled. The crew member either escaped or became incapacitated without being able to use the fire extinguisher. Aircraft components retrieved from the ocean floor displayed evidence of fire damage, indicating exposure to temperatures exceeding 300 degrees Celsius. The exact cause of the aircraft's destruction remained uncertain, but there were various possibilities being investigated. In 1987, South Africa was involved in a violent war with Angola. However, due to an arms embargo, obtaining weapons and equipment became a major challenge for South Africa's military. To overcome this, the government started using commercial passenger jets operated by South African Airways to transport war weapons. Missiles, chemicals, and other arms were loaded onto these planes by contracted companies. Many pilots at South African Airways knew about using passenger jets to transport weapons and felt uneasy. Captain Oos, the pilot of Flight 295, had expressed concerns to his wife about approving cargo he considered unsafe. However, these have not been definitively proven. The cause of the crash with flight number 295 has not yet been brought to light. In memory of the 159 people who lost their lives in the South African Airlines Flight 295 tragedy,